Well, this is going to be in replacement of the actual video for June 25th, 2020. It took me a while to kind of get the script all written out, everything. So let me know what you think. Let me know if any of the math I did is wrong. Um, so let's get started. For those of you who know me, or for those of you who have followed my videos, I've talked a little bit about how I enjoy science fiction and fantasy, whether it's books or movies or TV shows, stuff like that. I especially like Star Wars and Star Trek. In fact, I wound up recently binge watching all of Star Trek over the past couple years. Thinking back on when I was binge watching the entirety of Star Trek, at least the TV shows anyway, I wound up thinking of something that I had never thought of before. The original Enterprise NCC 1701 has traveled past the outer edge of the galaxy in 2268, or what in shows Stardate 4657.5. This is season 2, episode 21, called By Any Other Name. The Enterprise A, or NCC 1701A, traveled to the center of the galaxy, which is about the same distance as to the edge of the galaxy, on Stardate 8454.1 in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. USS Voyager got lost in the Delta Quadrant when it was originally going after um, Maquis soldiers. And when they got lost, they said it was going to take them 70, either 70 or 75 years to travel the 70,000 light years. Now, if the original Enterprise, as Scotty puts it, the Enterprise no bloody A, B, C, or D, was considerably slower, assuming it was, which I'll go cover the speeds later on in this video. But assuming the original Enterprise was slower than the Voyager ship, why did the crew of the Voyager plan to travel for 70 years to get home when the original Enterprise could have made the trip in less time? Why is there a difference in the time it took for the ships to travel similar distances? Or, distances we can calculate. In this video, I will cover the points in Star Trek stories where Enterprise and Enterprise A travel past the edge of the galaxy and to the center of the galaxy, respectively, and when Voyager gets trapped 70,000 light years away. I will also cover each of the different warp speeds from the original series and from the rest of the series, as well as the three ships' top speeds. Now, as I said before, the episode of the original series by any other name is the 22nd episode of the second season of the original series of Star Trek. It's written by D.C. Fontana and Jerome Bixby, based on Bixby's story, and it is directed by Mark Daniels. It was first broadcast February 23rd, 1968. Federation starship USS Enterprise, again, no bloody A, B, C, or D, responds to a distress call from an uncharted planet. A landing party beams down to locate the source and promptly finds a humanoid male and female, Rojan and Kalinda of the Kelvin Empire, who immediately paralyze Kirk and the landing party and order Kirk to surrender the Enterprise. Rojan tells Kirk that the Kelvins originate from the Andromeda Galaxy and have come to find planets suitable for conquest in the Milky Way Galaxy, which, for those of you who don't know, the Milky Way Galaxy is our galaxy. As their own ship has been destroyed by the negative energy barrier at the galactic rim, Rojan and Kalinda need the Enterprise to make the 300-year return journey. 3 other Kelvins transport aboard the Enterprise and quickly gain control of the ship. Rojan orders the landing party to a cave guarded by Kalinda. Spock uses his Vulcan telepathic ability to lure her into the cave, where Kirk knocks her unconscious and seizes her control belt. Their freedom is short-lived, however, as punishment, Rojan orders the Kelvin Hanar to activate his belt, transforming 2 of the landing team members into small cuboctahedral blocks of chalk-like substance. Basically, they get turned into blocks of salt or blocks of chalk. Rojan picks up the blocks and crushes one to dust, killing the former Yeoman Thompson. He then transforms the other block, Lieutenant Shea, back into human form. It goes on and on until Kirk allows Rojan and Kalinda to use the ship. They travel outside the barrier of the Milky Way. Spock places himself into a deep trance and uses that as a way to fake an illness. And transport everybody back to the ship. And that's when they travel outside the galaxy. And basically, Scotty gets one of the Kelvins drunk. McCoy injects another one with a supplement that's actually a stimulant, and Kirk begins flirting with a third one, which provokes jealousy in a fourth one. Because of all this, Kirk proves to the aliens that by the time they get back home, the aliens are going to be just as much of an outsider to their own culture as the aliens are to the crew of the Enterprise. And basically wind up getting brought back home, drop the Kellans off at a planet to be able to live, and the Enterprise goes about its business. Now, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, it was a film directed by William Shatner, the guy who played Kirk, following two films directed by Leonard Nimoy. Shatner also developed the initial storyline in which Sybok searches for God but instead finds the devil. His primary inspiration was the phenomenon of televangelism and the high potential for fraud among its practitioners. Yes, this is the movie with Sybok in it. And the script went through multiple revisions to please the cast and Paramount Pictures, including cuts in the effects-laden climax of the film. Um, so basically, the crew of the USS Enterprise are enjoying shore leave. Their leave is interrupted when the Enterprise is ordered by Starfleet Command to rescue human, Klingon, and Romulan diplomats taken hostage on Nimbus 3. And Nimbus 3 was a planet set aside as a neutral location to advance dialogue between Federation, the Klingon Empire, and the Romulan Star Empire. On Nimbus 3, the crew of the Enterprise discovers that the renegade Vulcan Sybok, Spock's half-brother, is behind the hostage crisis. And Sybok wanted to get a starship to Nimbus 3 and intended to reach the mythical planet of Shakari, the place where creation began. The planet lies in a seemingly impenetrable barrier near the center of the galaxy. And basically, they wind up going. Sybok commandeers the Enterprise A, goes to the center of the universe, or, basically finds this planet. And it's basically where the line, "What does God need with a starship?" came from. Um, Sybok then sacrifices himself in an effort to combat the creature that he originally perceived as God to allow the others to escape. Um, Kirk orders the Enterprise to fire a photon torpedo at their location to little effect. Spock and McCoy are beamed back to the ship, but the entity known as Claw attacks the Enterprise before Kirk can be transported aboard. They wind up escaping because Klingons destroy the planet, or Klingons destroy the entity in laser fire. Kirk is beamed aboard the Klingon ship, where Spock and the Klingon General Cord force Claw to stand down. And then they go back to their shore leave. So, Star Trek Voyager, Season 1, Caretaker episode, which is the pilot. It's technically considered episode 1, even though it's split up into episodes 1 and 2 because of how long it is, with it being an hour and a half long and the rest of the episodes of the series being 45 minutes. Caretaker is the pilot episode of the Star Trek Voyager series. The series premiere was first broadcast as a double-length episode on January 16th, 1995 on UPN, then split into 2 parts for syndication. Starts out with a scrolling text that introduces the Cardassian and Federation relationship with Maquis rebels. The opening scene, the Cardassians are pursuing a smaller Maquis spacecraft ship that escapes into the Badlands, which is a volatile nebula. The Cardassian vessel is damaged by a plasma storm, and the Maquis ship is caught in a displacement wave. On Earth, Janeway recruits Paris. Tom Paris is a disgraced Starfleet officer and now captured Maquis member, and she recruits him to help find the missing Maquis spacecraft because Janeway is searching for Tuvok, her security officer, who is on board the Maquis ship as a spy. They go to the they go to the Badlands, where the ship is scanned by a coherent Tetryon beam before they are basically dragged into the Delta Quadrant over 70,000 light years from Federation space. A bunch of the people die, including all the medical staff. The emergency medical hologram is activated to treat the injured, and the crew of the Voyager is transported to the array to basically meet the caretaker. They wind up transporting down to the planet that the array is near. They meet Neelix and Kes. Rescue Neelix and Kes from the Kazon, and basically transport up to the array again. And after figuring out that they can't have the caretaker, or they can't talk to the caretaker to have them be transported home again, they wind up blowing up the caretaker's array after the caretaker dies, so the Kazon can't use it. And then get into a quick scuffle with the Kazon and start their trip home. Now, the scale of the warp scale used by Starfleet in the 22nd and 23rd century is where the warp speed of a vessel measured in multiples of c, which is known as the speed of light, is equal to the cube of the given warp factor. The warp factor of a ship is the cube root of the fraction of v over c, where v is the speed of the starship and c is the speed of light. That basically, loosely translated, means that if the warp factor goes up at a normal rate, the speed of the ship goes up exponentially. To word it differently, warp 1 is the speed of light, but warp 3 is not 3 times the speed of light. I'll give you the list of several of the known warp factors from Star Trek's Memory Alpha page, and leave it at that. The times I give will be what it would take the Enterprise from the original series to travel from Earth to Alpha Centauri, or a distance of about 4.367 light years. As I said before, warp 1 is the speed of light. That means it would take the Enterprise 4.3 years to travel to Alpha Centauri at warp 1. Warp 2 is 8 times the speed of light, or 2 cubed times the speed of light. At this rate, at warp 2, it would take 197.69 days, or just over 6 months, to travel at warp 2 to Alpha Centauri. Warp 3 is 27 times the speed of light. At warp 3, it would take 58 days to travel to Alpha Centauri. Warp 6 is 216 times the speed of light in the original series. At warp 6, it takes the original Enterprise 7.32 days to travel to Alpha Centauri. In the original series, warp 10 is 1,000 times the speed of light. At warp 10 in the original series, it would take 37.96 hours, or just over a day and a half, to travel to Alpha Centauri. Starting with the next generation, the warp speeds were calculated differently. Warp factor 1 was still the speed of light. Everything else, however, changed. Warp 2 was just under 10.08 times the speed of light. Warp 3 in TNG was 39 times the speed of light. Warp 6 was 392.5 times the speed of light. And warp 10 was infinite velocity. Now, the Milky Way is about 100,000 light years across. The Sun, which is the star the Earth rotates around, lies about 26,666 light years from the center of the galaxy, and about the same distance from the edge of the galaxy. This means with the original series speeds at warp 11, which is the highest warp factor on the table for the original series, it would have taken the Enterprise, again, no bloody A, B, C, or D, and my math might have been wrong here, but because I figured, two different. I did the math twice and got two different answers here. But the one I picked, the original Enterprise, would have taken, what is this? 175,627 hours to reach the galactic barrier on the outside of the galaxy. This means that at warp 11, the Enterprise would have been traveling for 20 years, 2 weeks, and 3 days, approximately. The original Enterprise had a maximum speed of 0.73 light years per hour, which is about 6,395 times the speed of light. With the math I did on this part, at that rate, it would have taken approximately 36,529 hours, or just over 4 years and 2 months, to travel outside the barrier of the Milky Way. The Milky Way is about 10,000 light years across, as I said. The Sun lies, as I said, 26,066 light years from the center of the galaxy, which is about the same distance from the edge of the galaxy. This means, with the original series speeds at warp 11, which is the highest warp factor on the table for the original series, the Enterprise A would have taken 175,627 hours to reach the galactic barrier on the outside of the galaxy. Which means it would have been the same distance traveling to the center of the galaxy. Roughly translated, the Enterprise A would have been traveling for 20 years, 2 weeks, 3 days at that speed to get to the center. The Enterprise A had, again, top speed of 0.73 light years per hour. In that case, since Earth is about halfway between the center of the and the edge of the Milky Way, and it has the same top speed, it would take 4 years, 2 months, and 1 day, or just over 4 years, 2 months, to travel to the center of the galaxy. In the pilot episode of the Voyager series Caretaker, which is the one I covered earlier, the episode I covered earlier, it established that at maximum speeds, it would take 75 years for Voyager to... there we go. Gas bubble. Anyway, in the original pilot episode of the Voyager series, it is established that it would take Voyager 75 years to reach Earth, which at the time was approximated to be around 75,000 light years away. This would mean that at maximum speeds of the Voyager were around 933 to 1,000 times the speed of light. According to the Star Trek Voyager technical manual, this calculation was meant to be based on an unrealistic non-stop direct journey of warp 9.6, or at warp 9.99. A realistic estimate, according to the manual, was that the journey would last somewhere between 200 and 400 years, when taking into account that the required engine cooling time needed on such an extended journey. Having said that, I did the math. Again, my math might be wrong. USS Voyager NCC 74656 had a top warp speed of 9.975, or 3,053 times the speed of light. Seeing as they were perceived to be 75,000 light years away, at that speed, if they didn't stop, it would take them 24 years, 7 months, approximately. Alright. Now that I've talked about all the specifications from the original Enterprise, no bloody A, B, C, or D, the Enterprise A, and Voyager, I want to go over everything again, albeit quickly, and under normal circumstances. TOS Enterprise can travel at 6,395 times the speed of light. As with the Enterprise from the original series, the refitted NCC 1701A can also travel at 6,395 times the speed of light. Voyager, NCC 74656, can travel at 3,053 times the speed of light, or just under half the speed of the original NCC 1701. Now, show the shows explain that the ships can only travel at these speeds for so long before engine failure, but I want to explain something. In theory, a person or an object, in this case, each of the ships, could get up to a set speed and then use the momentum gain to just coast most to all of the rest of the way to their destination. This is because space is huge, there's very little to no resistance, and if they choose the right angles, they'd only have to change, direction a couple times, and they wouldn't have to stop. Having said that, I did the math. Again, let's take the longest distance any of these ships has traveled. 70,000 light years. Because each ship is different and can travel at different speeds, since the Enterprise and the Enterprise A can both travel at 6,395 times the speed of light, at maximum warp, they can travel 1,917,172,768,910 meters per second. This translates approximately to 6,901,821,968,075.448 kilometers per second. Or, no, sorry. That translates to approximately 6,901,821,968,075.448 kilometers per hour, I meant to say. Voyager, on the other hand, can travel 3,053 times the speed of light, which is just under half the speed of the Enterprise and the Enterprise A, or 915,266,374,274 meters per second. This translates to approximately 3,294,958,947,386.136 kilometers per hour. 1 light year is 9.46 trillion kilometers. Traveling at maximum warp, assuming they didn't stop, it would take the Enterprise and the Enterprise A 1 second to travel 1 light year. Which, translates to them traveling for less than a day to travel 70,000 light years. Traveling at maximum warp, it would have taken Voyager 3 seconds to travel 1 light year, or approximately 2.5 days at maximum warp to travel 70,000 light years. Having said that, this is all based off math that I did myself. Either one of these instances that I gave, whether it's, all the stuff that I gave in this, the warp speed list and the specs or whether it's the numbers I gave in the conclusion. All those numbers are based on math that I did myself using the speed of light and the known top speeds of the Enterprise, Enterprise A, and Voyager. I did the math myself. Either one of those answers that I gave for each of the three ships could be right. Each of them could be wrong. Please let me know if I'm wrong in my math or if I'm wrong in any of the numbers that I used. And I would appreciate if you let me know if you got a different answer. If you like this video, please subscribe, hit that bell notification, give me a like, and even if you don't do the math yourself, let me know down below if you like this type of video.